Good morning, Cretans. I just wanted to stop by. I know it's been a while. I haven't been on Facebook a whole lot except to share news articles and maybe a comment here or there. I've been really busy lately, as you know. I put in consistent public records requests, and so once I get the files and I go through them very carefully and start compiling data and information, it takes a lot of my time, so I'm not able to come on and do some of the interviews, especially with COVID happening. And so I did want to stop in today to let you all know that I did receive some records the past couple of days that were very concerning to me. As we struggle with the issue of law enforcement in this country, we are watching cities burn down. Law enforcement law enforcement cars, law enforcement buildings and corrections, and we see what's going on in Kenosha, and we see what's going on in Baltimore and Chicago, and we see what's going on in Portland, Oregon. We are now facing, whether people want to acknowledge it or not, we are now facing a civil war. We are now seeing people who before were silent and did not realize, did not see, did not understand just how bad policing is in this country. And so we're watching people who had never engaged before in dealing with law enforcement issues, misconduct, malfeasance. We are now seeing them come out and they are protesting, and in many incidents are being provoked by law enforcement, which is leading to a lot of the rioting and the fighting back, of law enforcement. And so first thing I want to say is, when it comes to the 17-year-old young man who drove across state lines with an illegal firearm and killed 3 people, this is probably as gut-wrenching to me as it was to watch George Floyd be murdered before us. I watched as someone had filmed him shoot Mr. Huber in the head, and I watched Mr. Huber die, just like I watched George Floyd die. And it's concerning to me that we are in a country right now which is feeding into this being okay. If it's not okay for him to walk into a school building and shoot children, then why is it okay for him to illegally cross state lines with a AR-15 and shoot 3 people, killing 2 of them? So we're in trouble in America. Even if we get Trump out of office, we have a lot of problems that we're going to have to work out, because there are so many people who are supporting him and supporting this law and order, which is basically a Nazi. It's a Nazi platform. And so we're watching things happen and unfold around us, and we cannot continue to remain silent. People who are silent, you are going to at some point become victim to what is occurring in this country. So please do not think that it's not going to come to your doorstep. It is coming to your doorstep. It's coming very quickly. Someone made a comment the other day and said these are only skirmishes. Well, that's how civil wars start. I see a lot of comments where people are saying, what did rioting and looting ever do? Well, obviously you did not pay attention, or you did not read any type of history books, because that is how the people who fought England separated from England and formed the Americas, is that they went to war. They rioted, they looted, and they, had a big tea party. So a lot of people who don't understand that when you're seeing this, you're saying, well, it makes no sense. It makes perfect sense if you know history. And what you also are failing to realize is that our government, instead of addressing what is causing the rioting, the protesting, the looting, is the police misconduct and demand of accountability. What you're seeing is your government just totally ignore what's causing it and sending it more military-like policing. And so if you don't think this affects you, you are sadly mistaken. And to remain silent on this is egregious. So with that out of the way, I did want to bring everyone up to date on what's happening with my OPOTA research. As you know, I have been looking at the state records for quite some time, and I do not understand how we have a governor and an attorney general who is not addressing the things that are lacking in our law enforcement. And so what I'm saying is that they know that these officers, and it's not just East Cleveland, this is a statewide issue. They know these people are not taking their training. They know they are functioning illegally. And what they're attempting to do is create a practice and a pattern of not obeying the Ohio Administrative Codes and the Ohio Administrative Revised Code and Ohio Administrative Codes for policing and police mandates. And so some of you may not understand it, but in law, if you create a practice and a pattern, you literally kill the rules, you kill the laws. The problem that they're going to be facing is that while those rules existed and they were not being adhered to, it opens up our government to billions and billions of dollars in lawsuits. And so until it's determined that the pattern and practice prevails over the rules and the codes, then, you know, it is what it is. So we do have people who have recently filed affidavits in surrounding suburbs against peace officers who have not taken their mandated training. There's no record of training, but they did report it to the state that they took the training. And so as we continue to file these affidavits in the courts and push for the courts to hold not only the peace officer, but also the chiefs of police responsible for removing such persons. So I'll put it again like this. We don't have legislation now which will like directly hold police accountable. But what we do have is legislation that we need enforced. And so understanding that we need enforcement of what currently exists is just as vital as having the rules of law changed for police accountability. So under our administrative code, and I've talked about this before. Good morning, Justin. If I'm going to see if I can get Justin to come on with us this morning. I don't know if he's awake enough and he wants to come on with us. But, you know, we've got some issues that are going on. So one thing that I did do was I asked for a complete list of the last 2 years of peace officers who took refresher courses that are mandated for them to take to restore them back into a position of legal authority to engage in law enforcement and carry firearms. And so I received a list and I received the curriculum. I knew you were, Justin. So maybe next go round. So I did ask for records from the state of Ohio asking for which peace officers had taken the refresher course, and I wanted a copy of the curriculum, the lesson plans, and the hours that were, you know, required or in the classes basically that they're taking. And so now I'm very concerned because in receiving those records, I found that there were many people who were actually honest enough to go take the refresher course knowing they were supposed to take it. But what I found is that the state OPOTA only required them to take 16 hours. Why is that a problem? Well, the commission over 2 years ago determined that to become back in compliance, you have to take a 40-hour mandated refresher course. And so they're not taking 40 hours, they're taking 16 hours, which means the state knows that these people are still out of compliance. They are not up to par, which means that they are in legal cease function. This is what happens when you allow the police to police themselves. This is what happens when there's no oversight. This is also what happens when there is no order, which is hilarious to me because Trump wants law and order, but there is no order within law enforcement. And so if you're talking about enforcing laws and having order amongst the citizenry, you need to have law and order within the policing of this country. So I can only speak for Ohio, but what I can tell you is this, is that a lot of these people have not taken the mandated courses since 2007. And so, but they've been receiving funding. They've been receiving state taxpayer funds, which have been allocated for the purpose of reimbursement. And so these people do not have their licensing under Ohio law to engage in law enforcement. This is problematic. I've also received records from another agency who reported to the state they did not take the mandated training, but they also reported to the state that they did take some type of training, and yet their records are void of any training. So what we're seeing when we're pulling these municipal records is that a lot of these police departments are focusing completely on taser usage and you know, how to capsicum, which is pepper spray, um, and firearm training. They are not being trained the way that on paper they are required to be trained. Even though they're telling the state of Ohio they're taking the training, they are not taking the training. So when we're talking about the refresher courses and you have a list of people who have only taken 16 of the 40 hours, they are still out of compliance. I've had a conversation with couple of judges, even a couple of Supreme Court judges concerning this matter, and having to like send the information to them so they can see. Even some of our county judges, I've informed them so that they know what's going on, and that, you know, there's some real issues when you have prosecutors who are walking into these courtrooms and asking for affidavits to be signed with affidavits or warrants to be signed by judges so they can investigate citizens when they have no legal authority to do something like that. So the argument was thrown at me that, you know, the police and the prosecutors have to work closely together. Well, yes, they do. But I don't agree with the thought process that a prosecutor should allow police or people who are not police but acting as such to continue to engage in law enforcement and then to prosecute citizens. There's something wrong with that thought process. We cannot allow that process to continue because that is sheer Nazism. You're talking about taking people who have rights under our Constitution and prosecuting them, taking their freedoms from them, sticking them in prisons that you know, they don't belong in. And so it's not fair as we continue to watch people getting out of jail, getting out of prison after 20, 30 years because of this type of conduct. And so our state legislators decided to pass rules which would allow police to be engaged in law enforcement by connecting their law legal authority to their mandated training. And then they said, hey, if you guys do this, which I think is absolutely insane, if you do this, we'll reimburse you the money. We'll give you the money for taking the classes. So we cannot wait on existing law, but future laws. We need to force existing laws. And so I also had a conversation with a detective friend of mine a couple days ago who said, well, in Cleveland, we are required to take in-service every year. I said, well, do they give you certificates? He said, no. I said, well, how do you know that they're recording it? He said, well, they send it to the state. I said, I bet if I pull your record, that your record with the state of Ohio is empty. And he said, what? And so a lot of police are unaware that no one is tracking their training, and that, you know, and they're not getting certificates to show that they actually took training. So now there becomes the legal argument of how do you prove that you were there and that you took the courses? And so I'm finding that as I'm pulling records from Cleveland that, for instance, and this is interesting, John Casimir, who is a Cleveland police officer, is the one that was caught on video. The young man during the George Floyd protest downtown, the young man tried to stop the protesters from throwing food and everything at the police. He got in between them and said, hey, stop. And so you see John Casimir come over with a baton and knock this kid down and start hitting him, and then someone else intervenes in between them. Well, John Casimir is that police officer. So, of course, you know me, I started asking questions about John Casimir, and I wanted to see his training, and I wanted to see what else was about him. So what I found interesting is that John Casimir used to be a paramedic. He had an EMS license, and he let it expire several years ago. But yet Cleveland has allowed him, and so has OPOTA, has allowed him to take advanced training courses with OPOTA so that he can teach being a paramedic within the training academy at the police academy for Cleveland. So how is it that Cleveland has not figured out yet that John Casimir, who has an expired paramedics certificate license, is no longer allowed under Ohio law to be a paramedic, but yet they're going to allow him to teach it in the police academy? So do you understand what I'm saying when I'm saying there's no oversight? Nobody is linking this stuff. Nobody is saying, hey, John, you're not up to date on your mandated training to have an active license to be a paramedic. So you can't teach in our academy, even if OPOTA lets you take the advanced courses. So, there are things that we need to be talking about, looking at. Young lady said to me the other day on Facebook, because I told a police officer I'm pulling his records. I mean, I didn't like what he was saying to me. I wasn't feeling it. I was not, happy about it. And I told him, I'm pulling your records. I want to see if you're up to date, sir, because you have a lot of stuff that that you got a big mouth on, and I want to see if you're up to date on your training. So of course he stopped commenting, and a young lady interjected, and a young lady said, hey, it's a shame you can't have a civil conversation without threatening to pull somebody's records. Well, my comment to her and anybody else is this: the problem is we're not pulling records. The problem is we're not looking to see if people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. We just take for granted that when Officer Friendly walks on the scene, he is actually a police officer under the law. So we look at them and see a gun and a badge, and we say he's a police officer, and we assume someone over him has made sure that he's taken his mandated training. Well, in this instance, again, like I told this young lady, I don't care what you think. You don't pay my bills. You're not my friend. I don't know who you are. You need to stay in your own lane. And so no more comments came from her or the police officer. But the bottom line is we need to really start asking these questions more frequently. When you're engaging with police officers, you need to ask a police officer up front in person. If he pulls you over for a traffic ticket, you need to ask that officer and get it on the body cam. Are you up to date with your CP training? Are you in cease function? Because you have the legal right to sue that person. If you get a ticket and he pulls you over and you go to court, and even if the court does not acknowledge the fact that that person is in cease function, you still have a civil lawsuit against that person, the chief of police, and the city for allowing it to continue. I have some lawyers who are not figuring this out, and I'm like, this is like so simple. The question, arose in conversation with some attorneys concerning, well, East Cleveland doesn't have any money. Okay, but all of those people who are in legal cease function, they have a lot of stuff that can be attached. And so I don't want these lawyers to think that because East Cleveland doesn't have any money, that they should not pursue these lawsuits. What you need to do is you need to pursue these lawsuits, and you need to pursue them in other municipalities, because yes, I am gathering data on various municipalities. Who are these municipalities you would like to know? I will tell you: Maple Heights, Rocky River, Bedford, Garfield. I'm pulling their records. I'm asking for records. I want to see them because the citizens need to know their rights. You need to know your rights. You need to know what you have, what you're entitled to. And under Ohio law, if these people have no record of their mandated training, they are no longer police officers and they are in legal cease function. Also, again, if any officer in the last 2 years took a refresher course and he only took 16 hours, he is still deficit because he was required by the commission 2 years ago. They voted on it, passed it unanimously. Which didn't make any sense to me also, because the previous requirement was 90 hours. They dropped it to 16. There was some concern that was brought in. 16 was not enough, enough hours. And so to compromise between the 16 and the 90, they decided to give peace officers 40 hours of a refresher training. So it still will behoove you, if you have been, if you've gotten a ticket, if a family member has gotten a ticket, if you have been arrested by a peace officer, that your attorneys, and I'm saying this to attorneys as well, If you can't do it and you don't know how to put it together, give me a call. I do. I'm getting pretty good at this. Last week, I got over 1,000 pages. And within 20 hours, I was able to organize those records to see if these people had training. And they had absolutely no training. And so also, this was also brought to my attention yesterday. You guys are going to love this one. So Matthew Rhodes is the person who is in the city of Euclid who killed Luke Stewart in his car when he was sleeping. And so it was brought to my attention that this person, Matthew Rhodes, was also a peace officer in the city of Maple Heights. He became a peace officer he joined Maple Heights Police Department in 2011. So Matthew Rhodes was required to take mandated training in 2014, 15, 16, and 17. And so when I requested Matthew Rhodes' records, Matthew Rhodes had absolutely no training, none. Are you listening to me? No training on record. So I immediately sent to OPOTA, which I'm still waiting to come back. I'm waiting for Matthew Rhodes' appointment history to come back so that I can send for his records for every department that he's ever worked in. Now, why is it significant that Matthew Rhodes did not take training in 2014, 15, 16, and 17 while he was at Maple Heights? Well, it's very, once a peace officer goes out of compliance, he cannot just keep taking classes to get caught up and, he's automatically reinstated. That is not how it works. A peace officer who does not take his training in every given year, a calendar year, if he does not take his training, he is supposed to, or his chief is supposed to, send a letter to the executive director of OPOTA requesting that person take get a 90-day extension into the new year and be able to continue engaging in law enforcement. And it has to be under special circumstances. You just can't say, well, my whole department didn't take it, so we need an extension of time. No, that's not how it works. If you get an extension of time under the code and the rule, the executive director can give you an extension of time no more than 90 days into the new year. So that puts you like into January, February, March, maybe the 1st of April, depending on when the executive director grants the extension. But from January 1st until that extension is granted, he is not a police officer anymore. He is not allowed to engage in law enforcement. And so what we found is that the chiefs of police are not asking for extensions of time for peace officers. They just keep going. They just keep moving forward. And they continue to arrest and engage, and they continue to do what they're doing. So a peace officer who works past January 1st with no training and no permission of a granted extension is no longer a police officer. So how do we route that back to Matthew Rhodes? We route it back to Matthew Rhodes by saying this. When he became non-compliant as of January 1st of 2015, he was no longer under Ohio law a police officer. He had no legal authority to engage in law enforcement. He did not stop. His chief did not stop him. His safety director did not stop him. His mayor did not stop him. He continued to engage in law enforcement. So as of January 1st, according to records that I received at this juncture, he was no longer a police officer and was required to return and take a, guess what, 40-hour refresher course to be reinstated and to get a reinstatement letter from the executive director. Now, he kept going. He kept going. He kept arresting people. He kept getting a taxpayer, check. Everything he's done since January 1st of 2015 has been unlawful. It has been unlawful, and he has not been a police officer since January 1st of 2015. So what's the problem with that? Why are we talking about this? We're saying this because you have a county prosecutor who knows that this has been going on, and he continues to prosecute cases coming out of Euclid, and he has not indicted Matthew Rhodes. And if he looked at his training records the same way I did,
that he would see Matthew Rhodes stop being a police officer in January of 2015. So when Luke Stewart was killed, he was not killed by a police officer who has qualified immunity, and the city does not have qualified immunity. He was killed by an everyday citizen who was literally, under Ohio law, impersonating a peace officer. And so we need to have these conversations. We need to be talking about this. We need to be getting this word out. We need to, and I don't rely on mainstream media for a couple of reasons. So the first thing I want to say to you is that the Cuyahoga County prosecutor is not going to prosecute police who they know are unlawfully engaging in law enforcement. What he's doing is he's keeping intact the flow of income and the flow of persons being fed into the pipeline to prison. So when your county prosecutor knows all of this information and he continues to prosecute people that are brought in by these impersonators, he does not care. He's the one who is breaking your constitutional rights at that point. So he did not indict any of the people who have not been compliant with training. He continues to stand back and watch as the city of East Cleveland kills people, shoots people, runs into people, high speed chases, and they're hurting people. They're hurting the public. Why is he allowing that to happen? Because the people that come in through East Cleveland keep the black population fed into the pipeline to prison, which it does what? They're privatized prisons. And so they have what? They have stock in those prisons. And in those prisons, they make their money by pouring poor African Americans into the pipeline. So it does not behoove our county prosecutor to prosecute the police that are doing such a wonderful job of keeping black people enslaved and imprisoned into the prison system. We need a progressive prosecutor. It is sad that no one ran against Michael O'Malley in this election, that sadly, if 5 people vote for him, he will still be the prosecutor in Cuyahoga County. But he needs to be held accountable. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. It does not matter who is being elected to those offices. We need to hold everyone equally accountable for what is happening to us. This is not going to go away. The country is on fire. We need to be having real solid discussions concerning policing, restructuring, defunding, reallocating money into communities that are being paid out for misconduct and malfeasance and excessive force and wrongful death claims. The money that's being poured out because of this is directly stemming from the lack of training, but also it is stemming from the racist systemic issues that are put into play. What did you say? I'm sorry. Chris Offer, CP. Brian, go away. So what I'm saying today is that I have found in looking at state records is that the refresher course is only being allowed to be 16 hours and it is mandated to be 40 hours. And this is what happens when you let the police police themselves. We have got to start talking about our judges. You have Judge John O'Donnell, who is running to be a Supreme Court justice in Ohio. He allowed Timothy Russell and Melissa Williams to be murdered by police officers. We had a prosecutor in the office, McGinty, who only charged one person, which was Brelo. He was acquitted, and within 2 weeks of being acquitted, he's in a domestic violence fight with his brother. They're both intoxicated in another suburb. And so what we're saying is they're giving these people passes to do what they're doing. We have to hold the judges accountable. I do not believe that we should be supporting voting for O'Donnell. I don't think that he deserves it. I don't even think he deserves to be on the county seat. He should have been gone. People should have been rallying around, removing him altogether. But more importantly, I think people should have been boycotting the Democratic Party with the nominations they continue to come up with. Like, you guys are not satisfied with the people that they're endorsing, but you're also remaining silent. You have a voice. Go down to the Democratic Party. Tell them, I do not want this person. This is not, this, has a record. We currently have a judge who has been on the bench since like 1970 or something like that. Okay, maybe 1980. And so what we have is a judge who has been numerously reported in the newspapers for years of misconduct and kookiness and crazy stuff that's coming out of that courtroom, and yet the Democratic Party continues to endorse that person. And so when we're seeing all of this, we're like, this is crazy, but you have a voice too, and you have to be able to use that voice. Call the Democratic Party, leave a message, talk to somebody, tell them you do not want John O'Donnell. They should withdraw their endorsement of him going to the Supreme Court. Let them know we did not forget how he ruled on that case with Michael Brelow. Michael Brelow should be in prison right now for killing Timothy and Melissa, along with the other 12 officers. They were not charged. So I'm saying we have a voice we're not using. And Mariah uses her voice an awful lot. But every once in a while, I would love to see some people come up behind me and say the exact same thing, make the exact same demands, because I cannot do it alone. I need you guys to be as involved as I am. Pick up that phone and call the county prosecutor and tell him you do not want him prosecuting cases for peace officers, particularly coming out of the city of East Cleveland, who have absolutely no training whatsoever. And I mean no training, none, except firearms. They are only trained to shoot you and kill you. That should be a concern. Now, what else is a concern for me? You have peace officers who have no training to use military-grade equipment that have military-grade equipment access. Like, that doesn't scare you? That scares the hell out of me. You can't put military equipment in Mariah's hands. She wouldn't know what to do with it. If you scare me, I probably would shoot you. So I'm saying that we have to open our eyes and open our mouth. My dad, for several years, pushed that police officers not only needed more specific training in specific areas, but he also pushed that every single misconduct, malfeasance, excessive force, wrongful death, that every peace officer should be tested for drugs and alcohol, and that those tests should be used against them in a court of law for prosecutorial reasons. But you have unions that have blocked it. So even if they do test positive for a drug or something like that, or steroids or whatever the case it may be, they can't use it against them in court. And I think that this is insane. Why are we giving people who have barely a high school diploma, with less than 6 months of basic training, why are we giving them so much authority? Why do they have so much power in our society other than to continue the systemic racism and to keep a certain demographic in power, which would be Caucasians? And so right now, what we are seeing and we're witnessing across this country is that there is now Caucasians who are saying there has to be police accountability. They're saying that they have to be prosecuted. They have to be stripped of their powers. And I'm hoping that some of our state legislators and our Congress members are listening to the cries of the people, because as long as these people continue to cry out, there will and nothing is done, you will continue to see burning, looting, rioting. You will continue to see these skirmishes against people that are representing law enforcement. You will see property destruction. We will continue to see this, and it will not just be isolated. It will move in from state to state, just like it's doing right now. And so, again, we in Ohio, in Chasing Justice, we're demanding that current laws and rules be enforced, because that is the problem. They are not being enforced. And we do have rules that protect us. Don't think we don't. We have rules. We have codes. And we need to really be talking about how the state of Ohio, the Attorney General's office, the state auditor, and the governor are ignoring the fact that hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer funds went out into departments that did not take training and are legally not police officers. Now, I try to stay out of the Democratic Republican arguments, but when I see a party, specifically in this instance, the Republican Party, that is sending out more law enforcement to quash the protests that are going on, and that they are ignoring the fact that black people are being killed, I cannot vote for a party that does not support and protect the citizens of the United States, no matter what color they are. But also the fact that our government is not protecting those persons who are in law enforcement. So that's the other side of the coin we're not really talking about. But everybody who puts on a gun and a badge is someone's son, is someone's husband, is someone's brother, is someone's mother, is someone's daughter, is someone's aunt. You know, everybody who puts a gun and a badge on. And I think that if we're going to be required and mandated to have policing the way it is, that the states owe it to those peace officers and troopers to ensure they are properly trained to do the jobs that they are asking them to do. And so we don't see that here in Ohio. We don't see that they have any type of system in place to govern training, to govern how many hours have been taken before they send out reimbursement funding to these agencies. And so wrapping this up, guys, if you have any questions, you know, always drop them down. I will more than happy answer them. But I think that we need to start having some serious discussions. Another update, we are working on our website. So we'll be putting our website together. We're putting our website together. It should be up soon, so that people, in terms of citizens and in terms of law enforcement, as well as civil and criminal defense attorneys, will be able to engage our services to pull the records and determine whether or not peace officers have taken their training, and so that they will be able to, one, defend criminal defense cases, and two, they will be able to file civil suits against the peace officer, the chief of police, the safety director, the mayor, and the cities, and be able to maybe just get these people to start taking this seriously enough where they will start now holding police accountable through their training. So again, no training, you're not a police officer in the state of Ohio. You do not have qualified immunity. And if you are a police officer who is watching this, and you recently in the last 2 years took a refresher course and it was only 16 hours, you are still legally out of compliance. So you've been warned. I've told you, you now know. And if you want the commission meetings where they pass the 40-hour resolution, let me know. I will send that to you. And so I don't come on much anymore because, again, I'm always busy. When you don't see me, when you don't hear from me, it's because I'm in over my head with research, gathering data and information. I will be releasing 2 reports in the next probably 6 or 7 months in terms of trying to get records from different police agencies, so that you all will have access to knowing who is a police officer and who is not a police officer. And we will track their training. If the state of Ohio will not put anything in place to track the training and track who's in legal cease function, then we will do it ourselves. And so, guys, I love you all. You have a good day. I've got to go put in some public information requests. I've got to send some information out to lawyers today so that they have it. And so have a wonderful, wonderful day. And you guys will see me soon again when I have something else to say. But again, when you engage with a peace officer, ask that peace officer, especially if he has on body cam, are you up to date with your CPT training? Are you in legal cease function? And so that officer is going to say to you, well, yeah, I am. So then that's when we pull those records to see if he really is. And if he isn't, yes, you have a lawsuit. So guys, have a wonderful, wonderful day. I know it's rainy in Cleveland. I'm not sure if there's sunshine where you are, Beverly, but it's definitely raining in Cleveland, so it's kind of gloomy. But still, have a good day. Have a good weekend. I love you all. I work for you. I love you enough to sacrifice everything I do so that you guys can be protected and have your rights and exercise those rights. Guys, have a good day. Have a good weekend if I don't come back on. Hi, Gilder, and thank you. And so again, I want you guys to make sure that you have a good day, and be blessed and be safe. And make sure you keep your eyes open, because there's a lot of stuff happening in our country that's not working well for us, and it's not going to turn out well from the way it looks. So be blessed, everyone. And so what did you say, Dorian? Continue. I will try. Deborah, you want me to post requirements? Which requirements do you want me to post, Deborah? Do you want me to post the historical mandates? Do you want me to post the refresher course mandates? What do you want me to do? Let me know what you want me to post. And so, guys, I can also send you, if you inbox me and you send me an email, I can send you the email links for you to look at too, so that you can have them. So anybody that wants something, always just reach out to me, and say, Mariah, I need to know this. You guys need to know your rights. You need to know who you are, and you need to know the power that you have to change all of this. Okay. CPT training. Yes, I can post that. I posted it before in the past. The mandates that people are supposed to have, Deborah. And I can post them again. Yes, I can post them this afternoon. I can put or maybe when I'm done with this, I can post the CPT mandate specific training that every peace officer in Ohio is supposed to have, and we're finding they're not taking the training. The training is always, something like domestic violence, missing children, just what should you say when engaging with peace officers? Be cordial, be polite, be civil with a police officer. If you are pulled over for a ticket and a police officer says license and registration, you hand him your license and registration and say, officer, why did you pull me over? Well, I pulled you over because you were speeding. You were doing 45 in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. Okay. Officer, are you up to date with your CPT training? That is continued professional training. Are you up to date? Okay. Okay. So you're going to ask the officer specifically. You're going to say to him, are you up to date on your CPT training? And then that officer is going to say, he's going to look at you really funny, and he's going to say, of course I am. And then you're going to ask the question, are you in legal cease function? And so the officer says, no, I am not in legal cease function. At that point, let him write the ticket. You want him to write the ticket. You want to go to court, and in the interim of that, you are able to ask for discovery. So you can file discovery, and of course, we do have people who will help you file this. So don't think that this is something by yourself. We have services available, and most of our services are free because we are not lawyers. We do have lawyers working with us, but us as private citizens, we do not accept any fees if we help someone file paperwork. If we show you what you need to do and we help you file the paperwork, there is no charge. So we are not charging anyone any legal fees for what we do. And so you'll file what's called discovery. And in that discovery, you will ask for the specific CPT training from the time that peace officer graduated from basic training. And so they need to have, every year, they are required to have 24 hours of training plus the training that is mandated by the state, which allows them to get reimbursement funding. So in 2018, 19, and 20, the state did not put any money aside for reimbursement. And I'm sure a lot of it has to do with the research that we've been doing, and there's no oversight. So they have not mandated specific training. So understand what I just said. They have not mandated specific training for police, but they are still mandated to take training. And that training can be anything in any area, whether it's trauma-informed policing, domestic violence, missing children. They still have to have 24 hours of training every year in their jacket. Okay? Ohio Administrative Code 109-2-1803, Section A, ends with a period. It clearly states every agency appointing authority is required to make sure that every peace officer has taken up to 24 annual hours of training. And there's a period at the end of that sentence. So they still are mandated to take training. I'm not even finding that mandated training. And so what you have to do when you have this interaction with a peace officer. Some peace officers might just hand you your license and insurance and walk away because they know what you asking for. They ain't got. So that right there would be a red flag within itself. But other officers might get a little haughty and they might get upset and angry that you asked that question. And that tells you right then and there, they do not have the training. So I'm going to say about 10 months ago, I had a interaction with a Cuyahoga County deputy down at the Justice Center. And she was so rude and she was so nasty. And I very professionally asked her, do you have your CPT training? And she blew a gasket. None of your business what I have. And she was trying to provoke me so that she could arrest me. And I just laughed at her. So you know what I did before I even left the parking lot downtown? I sent for her training records. She has no training records whatsoever. I went to all of the departments that she's worked at. No one has one CPT training record for this person who is acting as a deputy sheriff. So understand, this is not isolated to East Cleveland, Maple Heights, Rocky River, Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department. There are people who are operating in law enforcement that have no legal authority to be there. Brian, wouldn't it be better to have the compliance conversation in the courtroom rather than at the time of the encounter citation? Nope. Deborah, okay. Yes, Deborah, you are absolutely correct. I'm sure that there are things in other states. I think that Beverly, who's also on here, she was earlier, they're in Baltimore, and I found out, or Maryland, they're in Maryland, and I found out that some states don't allow you to access police records, and so it makes it harder. And so I think the fight in those states should move into forcing state legislators to open up police records to the citizenry, because they are public records and they're being paid for by the public. And so I don't understand why some of these attorneys have not taken that on and dealt with that issue. I know New York just passed it where now they're opening up police records so that people can see what's inside of their files. But I think Maryland also needs to be pushing for legislation for that. And so, hi, Mr. Millman. Nothing?
Yes, it's in the door.
Okay, thank you. Okay, guys. And so, so when you, Brian, when you say, wouldn't it be better to have the conversation in the courtroom rather than at the time of the encounter? No, because you want to get it on the body cam where he says to you that he's up to date. You need that as evidence. So when you go to court, you're also going to be requesting the body cam and the dash cam where he said to you that, yes, he was up to date. And that helps with your perjury in terms of what the officer is telling you at the time. Because at the time of you being issued that citation, you are under the impression that a legal law enforcement officer has engaged you. Okay, cool. So you have to remember that you have to start protecting yourself at the very moment that you engage with a peace officer. One of our members got pulled over for speeding, and he asked, excuse me, he asked the officer on the video, are you up to date with your training? Are you in cease function? The officer said, yes, I'm up to date with my training. And so when we pulled his records, zip, zilch, zero, nothing. And so now he has a civil case because he was under the impression that this person was legally and had the legal authority of engaging in law enforcement. And under our Ohio revised code, that is the definition of impersonating a police officer. So just remember, use your wits, be smart about it. Ask these questions. Ask whether or not, if you're in the state of Ohio, ask the question whether or not someone is in legal cease function. You have the right to ask that question. Be cordial. Don't be mad. Don't be angry. You got pulled over. Okay, it happens. But also, you also have the legal right to get a ticket from a police officer who actually has taken the training, because there are two issues with this. One is that we see a lot of people get beat up, and we see a lot of people get arrested. We see a lot of people get killed at traffic stops. Like, a minor infraction of running a stop sign should not result in someone being beaten or killed. That's absolutely insane. But also, on the flip side, a lot of times when you see police officers get killed and troopers get killed, it's at a traffic stop. And so, traffic stop, let me see. So you said, yes, are you up to date? Not with cease function, Deborah. Are you up to date with your CPT? Are you in cease function? Okay. Is it helpful to interject this with someone else's arrest that one witnesses? I don't know. I think that it would be interesting to see if you see someone being arrested. Ask the question out loud. Make sure you videotape it. Officer Friendly, are you up to date on your mandated training? That might anger him. If it angers that person, then 9 times out of 10, he is not up to date on his training. Don't say anything else after that. Do not incite. Do not, push him to where he'll come over and try to arrest you. But if you throw that question out there, it should turn their heads. They should look at you, even if it's a specific look will tell you if that person is in cease function and he knows he's in cease function. In legal cease function, yes, Deborah. You would ask that person, are you in legal cease function? Yeah, definitely. And so, so the words that you want to know are continued professional training, short CPT. Are you up to date with CPT? Did you take your mandated hours? Did you take your 24 hours this year? Those are questions that you need to ask that officer, and if possible, get it on the dash cam, get it on the body cam, making sure that people are understanding that now you guys understand. Now you have something you didn't have before that is going to allow you to possibly win your case, but also have a civil case against, again, the peace officer, the chief of police, the safety director, the mayor, and the city in which that person is operating as a peace officer. Now, in some people's defense, in terms of mayors may not know this information. They might not know this information. They might not know that their chief of police has been lying and stating to the state that they took their training. So what I've been trying to do is, once I gather the information, I've been sending it to law directors. I've been talking to some law directors who are now becoming familiar with it and understanding it. And then they are the ones who are supposed to go talk to the mayor about what's happening. And so hopefully when we're talking about, the mayors not knowing, they're still over this. They still should have a system in place. Your council should have a system in place to ensure that all peace officers are up to date on their training, because the way that you should do this is you should be able to have a system in place where there's accountability over everybody. So there should be a train of accountability. So for instance, who's looking at the chief? Someone should be over the chief, which would be the law director, who says, hey, is your department up to date on the training? The chief says yes. So the law director should be able to look at those records and that he's relying on to say that they're compliant to, determine whether or not that department is not compliant. So I'm saying that we need to move into higher accountability. We have to move past the police, because there are people over the police that are required and mandated and should have a duty to ensure that every peace officer has their training. So I want you guys to look into this stuff and ask these questions. If you don't know, ask me. I am more than welcome and happy to answer your questions. And so we need to have real discussions about this. I'll post the information out there about CPT hours, but every police officer in every department should have a record by law. There should be some type of record kept in the municipal records in the municipal agency, which proves that peace officers have taken their training. And I'm not finding that. I'm not finding it And especially in the case of East Cleveland. So we know East Cleveland doesn't keep records. We know that. That's just obvious. Like, you ask East Cleveland for a record, you could just forget it. It's not there. They're horrible, horrible, horrible record keepers, just horrible. And so they'll fight you tooth and nail not to give you anything. So what we did was we went to the state and we got appointment histories for everybody who was appointed in East Cleveland from 2007 up until 2000, actually currently, because we're still pulling those records. When they get new peace officers, we pull their records too. And so what we found is that because East Cleveland didn't have a record, we went back to departments that did have records, and we found that even in those departments, they weren't taking the mandated training. So you have departments who are not taking the training, and nobody's looking at it, and nobody's asking, well, who's doing this? So what we've done is we've just formed this group, this organization, which is comprised of private citizens who are pulling the records, and we're compiling the records from every single department. That was something that was, screamed at me, oh, you went to all the departments and pulled all their records. Well, yes, I did that. Why do you do that? I did forensic accounting for years before I started doing this kind of stuff. So in forensic accounting, you pull every single record and you put it together, you compile it so you can come up with accurate information and data. So my information compared to the state of Ohio's information is going to be completely and absolutely unequivocally different, because when the state, for instance, did the audit for East Cleveland, they did not look at all of the other departments that these guys had appointments at. So I did. I pulled all of their records, and I made a public video stating to any peace officer that has records that they want me to have to include so I can eliminate them from the list of names. Give me your records and I will compile them and tell you whether or not you are compliant. Because as sad as this is, even peace officers are not keeping track of their own records, so that they're relying on their chiefs. They're relying on the state of Ohio. And I don't think anybody should rely on keeping track of your records. You should have your records, and you should be able to produce those records. You guys have heard me talk about this before when it comes to the online training that they were taking. One, they're not allowed to take online training. So if you're a peace officer and you're watching this and you're taking online training, by law, you are not allowed to take those classes online. Secondly, the state knows that those 7-minute classes do not meet a 55-minute requirement, and they do not meet the requirements under OAC 109-1803, requiring peace officers have CPT training with a certified OPOTA instructor. So you guys have to understand, I'm not against police. I'm not against fighting the police either. So let's make this perfectly clear. I'm not against police, but I'm not against fighting wrongful actions of what police officers doing. This is a system we are stuck with at this moment. And so we have to hold them accountable by the rules and the laws that are currently existing. And if we're going to do that, we have to be boisterous about it. We have to speak out about it. And again, looking at, it's only fair to every peace officer when I pull their records that I do a complete history. So there are officers, I have pulled their history going back to 2007 when they made this a mandate. I pulled their records all the way back to 2007 to see if they actually took the classes. And so when I saw was that no, they're not taking the classes. They were grandfathered in, but the chiefs were actually reporting to the state, yeah, they took their classes. But there's no record of the classes. There's no evidence that they took the classes. So what do I have to say about that? I have to say that these people know exactly what they're doing, and they know that they are not taking classes. They know no one's holding them accountable. They know no one's oversighting it, and they're not worried about it. And that should be concerning to everyone that is watching this video. I started this video off talking about peace officers who have taken refresher courses in the last 2 years. If you're watching this and you took a 16-hour class, you are still deficit. You are supposed to be taking a 40-hour class. I can send you the commission meetings if you want. Inbox me. I will send that to you, and so that you can have it and you will know for yourself that everything I'm stating is being relied on by records that are sent to me from the state and various municipalities. So guys, again, I was going to get off until somebody asks questions, but I'm going to let you guys have a good day. I've got some work I got to get done. I've got some, I've got to pull some more records and find out a couple more things that I think is a red flag going on, but I can't speak on it yet because I don't have the documents to support it. And I never, ever, ever come out here and talk to you guys without having supporting documentation. So again, you guys have a good day. Have a great weekend. And I love you all. I miss you all. And please, please stay strong. And just remember, as my daddy would say, the struggle continues.